Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to team meeting number 34. I've heard today that I'm sounding a little bit like Mr. Roboto, so forgive me for that. You also might notice that I'm not hosting the chat on the Plano account that Dan is. That's because I had a wonderful experience with my internet connection this week. You can, let me get back to the page, where today we were going to be discussing what we'll be working on in the next month, keeping our mission promise consistent. So we have a whole load of faculty questions which we want to discuss, and we have new account workflow. We've been discovering some issues in there, so that's one thing that we want to discuss as well. And I think that's enough from me. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel or our page. Everything. Just subscribe to everything that we do. Everything. Am I right, Robert? Am I right?
Exactly. We have Twitter, which is Aplerno, is our username. Our Facebook page, which you can look us up on Facebook, is Aplerno. Also, when you go onto our website, remember, if you haven't already subscribed to our newsletter and our faculty updates, etc., please do that. So yeah, subscribe. And of course, if during this meeting any questions pop up, you can send them to questions@aplerno.com, or you can also tweet them to us, which is @aplerno. So without any further ado, let's get on to the first piece is what we're working on in the next month. I'll take the first part of that. Right now, we're very happy that we've hired Jessie May Emmerich as our co-founder and director of marketing and community. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be bringing her up to speed. And she's also got a lot to add in terms of our mission, our faculty outreach, and as we work towards the admissions part of Aplerno and attracting students. So we're bringing her up to speed, but we're also engaging internally in a series of discussions and meetings centered around how do we get from 2 to 1,000 students. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the faculty questions session. I'm also working on starting to get the pieces together for the degree granting authority application, which is I'd like to have that in by February, and also the creation of several different certificate programs, which we'll be talking about in the next coming weeks. Daniel or Dan, do you want to chime in with things that you're going to be working on in November?
Sure. I will be the Aplerno logo voice today. This past week, I've been doing essentially an audit, which is a scary term, but it's not really. Going through faculty, seeing what their engagement levels are with their courses, with Canvas, with essentially all of their account access through the marketplace. And we have sort of been grouping them into stages of progress. So we'll be contacting faculty based on where you stand. We found some courses that are really close to being completed, and so we're going to try to get those finalized, get them up on the marketplace. We're also going to create a course. Rob and I are tossing around the idea of creating a very cheap, not for credit, 6-week course just for our faculty to help build up your course via the modules feature, assignments, quizzes, conferences, all the features that Canvas allows. So that's something that's we'll announce soon. We are still very much working on the logistics and building it ourselves. That's an idea we had at the end of last week, so it's still fresh. But if faculty members out there are having trouble or need some sort of structure, we will be hopefully putting that up and getting you guys help and access to us in a set amount of time so that we can sort of put that aside and be in touch, you know, and allow to meet and share screens and sort of build together. So look for those coming down the pike in the next few weeks. And that's my biggest project upcoming. So I guess I'll pass it off to Daniel.
Well, I've been reasonably busy this week, in the past week with setting a lot of things for a portfolio. I think this month, for last month, for this month, I'm going to be very busy with, together with Jesse, making improving the sites, improving the marketplace so that it's more friendly for better sets. Doing a lot of the or part of the outreach together with her and making it easier for her to integrate the things that she needs to have integrated for whatever she's doing, for whatever we're all doing, of course, and the faculty's doing them. And basically collecting a lot of that information in the first week, I hope, and then for the rest of the time, just typing really furiously on my keyboard and building a whole lot of stuff and making really, really fantastic magic happen.
Yeah,
is that what you want to hear?
Yeah, that's the whole piece about the portfolio and the GUI and the marketplace is really, really exciting because we've developed this, you know, again, the minimal viable product, a product that works, and now we're going to be improving it. I'm really excited about the portfolio because of how it's going to push us pedagogically in a really cutting-edge direction. But that's good. But first, of course, we got to work on the faculty support and producing more content. So why don't we go to...
Will you just define GUI?
Oh, GUI. A graphical user interface. Okay. So a GUI is sort of the face of how a program works. So if you want to look at, you know, some really interesting GUIs, you can check out you know, Canvas, how it works. That's the GUI. But we will geek out on that. Facebook, yep. We will geek out on that a little later. Okay, so let's go to a question or sort of a comment we had internally about keeping our mission promise consistent. 80% and 90% of the course revenue to faculty are dependent on, and we need to keep that clear. Okay, so why this has cropped up is we've had a few different groups who have contacted us about developing courses and working with us as you know, creating a pipeline for students and all types of other things. And when we talk with those organizations, we always are telling them that the main goal is to get students into classes where then faculty are teaching, so that we're pushing everybody to have the relationship with our faculty like we do. In other words, remember on the faculty contract it states that Aplerno receives 10% of the revenue coming in, or $100 per student, whichever is greater. So when we're trying to develop relationships with other institutions, whether it's about content that might be licensed, we're really sticking with that piece to make sure that the people who actually produce the content, produce the intellectual property, produce the courses, that they're the ones getting a vast majority of the revenue. That's really our main mission, and that's why we're designing everything, you know, remotely, to use the internet, the cloud, why we don't have a huge technological infrastructure, why we don't have fancy office buildings or sushi on Fridays and ping pong tables and all of that type of infrastructure, is because the more that we take up internally, the less we're able to pay the faculty, and the higher the cost to the students. So we're going to keep that design feature and keep that as the main focus of our mission. And if we ever get into a situation where we get a deal that seems really, really good, we're going to be opening up that negotiation with our entire community and the people who are the stakeholders. to talk about that. We're not going to make some unilateral decision. So there's some exciting pieces, but when I go in and I talk with people, it's always the 90%, 90-10, or what we call sort of the 80-20 rule. 80% of the revenue, 80% meaning if it was $100 per course and you were only charging $500 for your class, it would be 20% to Uplerno, 80% to the faculty. But we're always making sure that we've got that 90%, 10% to Uplerno, or $100 per student, whichever is greater. That's all we want to take, and that's all we're planning on taking in terms of your work and your teaching. Okay. Is that pretty clear, guys? Did I make it fairly clear without rambling on for?
Yeah, I just think sometimes when we're mentioning either in a meeting or a newsletter, or sometimes we'll say 80%, sometimes we'll say 90%, and the bottom line is if you're charging at least $500 for your course, you will take home at least 80% of your course revenue as a faculty member. If you charge over $1,000, then it would switch over to the 10% delineation or sharing amount. So the bottom line is at $500 or more, faculty members take home at least 80%. As you grow the amount of per enrollment, you might take home a larger percentage as the sharing switches over to a 90-10 split. But sometimes I don't want someone to get misled and say, well, you said 90 in this one thing, because this is all in the faculty contract as well, so nobody would be able to teach without looking that over and signing it. But just to keep the sort of mission and outgoing message consistent, just want to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important. We've been whenever we do any type of outreach, we're always saying 80 to 90%. There's also whether we're saying 80% or 90%. I always try to keep it where you're going to get at least 80% of the revenue. In the worst case scenario, you'd get 80%. So I try to make that very clear and say it can be up to 90% of the sorry, is it the revenue of the
tuition revenue?
Yep. Tuition revenue.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing, and I think if we stick with that, I mean, the numbers work out from a financial aspect. When we stick to that, we're also really making it difficult for other institutions to compete with what we pay, and will attract great people, as we are doing. So let's go to unless Jesse, do you want to add anything to that?
Nope, I'm just listening.
Okay. Let's then go to faculty questions, which have come by. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, by the way, Jesse, if you think we ramble too much, you can also tell us.
Yeah, you can also cut us off, okay, because we do tend to ramble. Okay, faculty questions. They come in via email, sometimes via Twitter. And
I think a number of these came via Canvas.
And a bunch via Canvas. So let's take the first one. Are there any courses successfully in session? We don't have any courses that are running right now. We are still working on enrollment and admissions, and also attracting the getting together a large enough catalog where we're able to attract students. So that's really important to remember that we're still in the building phase. I've also done, we're still in the building phase, and we need to remember that as we move forward over the next 6 months, we need the largest amount of courses in our catalog as possible, which means faculty have to produce them. And we'll talk a little bit about the feedback loops, and how how we're planning to grow from 2 to 1,000 students over the next 6 months in a few future sessions. Why don't Daniel, can we get any statistics about visits to the course information pages on the marketplace?
Like a simple answer is yes. Of course, we can get statistics. I've been working for a while. Anybody who actually requested statistics from me directly or from faculty at Palermo or info at Palermo, I've been sending them. We haven't got a statistics page yet, and this is certainly one of the things that we want to do. I don't want to be all corporate and everything and say we have to refer to the roadmap. So do you know what? If enough people say, if enough people comment on this or comment on the Canvas post to say we want this now, then this is one of the first things that we're going to pick up for you guys. Is that good?
I think that's a great answer. Let me take the next one, which is how many students are currently taking any of Palermo courses? So we've had 2 students sign up to take one class. But again, we've just started to really focus on the admissions. And so now we're at 2, thus what we're calling internally from 2 to 1,000. How do we scale to 1,000 students taking at least one class each? So that's where we are at. We are still at 2. Let's go to the next one. Dan, why don't you answer this one? How many students were able to apply for and get credit for their Palermo courses?
Well, so as you guys know, Palermo courses are able to be given credit. The credit is legitimized by the State of Vermont Board of Education. What that means is, much like perhaps in traditional higher ed, what you might consider credits from, say, an abroad program would transfer back into a traditional institute of higher learning, we'd kind of operate in the same way at this time. Again, that's until we are able to get full degree granting authority, the process for which we are starting soon. So that hasn't happened yet. As Rob was saying, what we're now able to do with Jesse on board, and with kind of drumming up the content from the faculty end, as well as finalizing and refining the technological interface, is that this is sort of a web ball sphere moving forward, rolling forward, and it's not one thing that's going to break us through. So between building content that's attractive to students from faculty end, creating articulation agreements with current institutions to which our credits would be transferred, sort of legitimizes and provides safety for students to take our courses. Working on outreach and community building, and again, getting our interface up to, where we can call it perfect and start working on the portfolio. All these things kind of work in conjunction with each other. So it's kind of like every piece that inches forward, you got to get the other ones to move with it. And as the web and sphere sort of grow, it'll all roll forward. Again, that's part of the current, I guess, dynamic of how we need to move forward. Unfortunately, it's not a linear path. Nothing in life is, and most things take longer than you expect, even though we've made some pretty amazing progress in about 18 months. I guess that's the take home, is that it's not a linear path. There isn't sort of a check mark sort of way to get through this all. But as we build the content, as we get students on board, as we get those articulation agreements, each of those feed into each other to build momentum. So, there's essentially 5 people in this meeting, if you would count faculty members as one unit, and each of us have a responsibility to create what we can that adds to that web and that system along that dynamic path. So if you're listening out there, faculty, build your courses. The more we have, the more attractive we are to students, the more students we can attract, which will help everybody. The more people that come through our website and quote doors, the more they'll, you take one class, they'll see how easy and how great how easy it was to take the class, how great the content was, and what they got out of it, and then essentially how the courses will transfer. that's your first ticket. Once you see that process go through, the sky's the limit as to how many courses students will end up wanting to take. So I know that was a little bit of tangent off of how many students were.
No, you did a great job of explaining it. It's feedback loops. It's like you said, a web and network working together, and we each have different things that we can do to help move this forward. And we're doing ours in terms of the technology, the accreditation, and also the faculty support. We need people to be producing. We need our faculty, like you said, to produce the content, which they're doing. And now we're adding that element of, how many students can we attract to the courses, and all those will feed energy into this growing system, which will benefit us all. And that's pretty exciting. One thing to remember is I've been doing some reading on different startups and about how long it takes from the initial idea to when there is a large uptick or profitability. The interesting thing is if you take a look at us in terms of a startup, we're not an app, okay? So we haven't gone under 18 months of development to produce this widget, this computer program that's going to transform things. What we're trying to do is fundamentally alter the relationship that faculty and students have within the educational system, and that's very, very complex. It takes most startups roughly 3 years to reach some type of traction. Okay, we've done that. We've done a really good job in 18 months to move forward. And we're about halfway there. Interestingly enough, we have a few things that most startups in these programming widgets don't have to deal with, and that's the biggest part is what I'd call sort of government or regulatory capture. Okay, we're an educational institution. We take education really seriously, so it means that we've got to go in front of the State Board of Education and deal with accreditation, both at a state, national, and regional level. And in some ways, we can't control that timeline because you've got to be up for a certain amount of time before you can go to the next level of accreditation. And so we're always having to kind of deal with things at a pace not as quickly as we might like. It would be great. I feel very confident that we're going to be able to, offer degree programs. Well, in a normal business, what you would say is, hey, we're going to offer this product, and we'd announce it. But in education, you can't really just sort of announce that you're going to be creating a product and recruit students and customers without having that approval from the state. It's just not ethical, and in some cases not legal. So we're having to, our velocity, and velocity is used in programming, but also in business, about how quickly we're solving problems, and we're doing that. We're doing things at a very rapid rate, but we need you guys to take a little bit of a leap of faith with us and for faculty to produce the content so that we can show that to the accreditation groups and to apply for the degree granting authority. But the last little piece that I want to say is, remember that email that I sent out, which was announcing that Jesse had joined us, but it also had information about our run rate. Run rate meaning, we've engineered this in such a great fashion that we're not burning through capital to create a Plerno. And because of that, we can afford to wait for a while to make sure that those steps happen. So a Plerno is going to be around, for a very long time. We're committed to making this happen, but we've had to be really smart about how we spend money, and also have to be really smart about the recruitment of people. And I'm really happy that we've recruited Daniel, Dan, and Jesse. What a great team to start with as co-founders as we move this forward. And it's the team that's going to make all of these particular things happen. And then we've got some phenomenal, that first pit, phenomenal faculty members who are producing great content. But we need more phenomenal faculty members. So get your content out and spread the word to your friends. End of sermon.
Oh, I have two things. Well, one thing to add to that, of course, that we have had some absolutely additional fantastic founders who are the people who funded our Indiegogo campaign, and they have without them, because they're the basis, and without them it couldn't have all been possible. They were absolutely fantastic in helping us to get into this initial stage, that we actually have a platform and that we can actually go further. So kudos to those as well.
And also some people who have been working behind the scenes technologically to help us. Adrianos, in server space, and even the people at Canvas and Instructure, who've been very, very nice and created a great platform. Without that one, without Canvas, this doesn't work. That is an absolutely amazing program pedagogically to teach. But we've added some amazing things with the marketplace, and filled with culture in terms of how, again, that relationship between faculty and students. And so yeah, it's really going to be fun once we start taking off. It's fun now, but I definitely want to be reviewing more classes. Dan and I want to be doing that. Daniel wants more feedback, from people about the marketplace program, and Jesse is learning all about our community that we've already created and has great ideas to expand that. So we're pushing, but we're also patient, and it's going to be really fun to make Aplerno happen. All right. So what other questions do we have that we didn't deal with here? What worked to draw students to the information about the class and then enroll? Well, I've told you that we've had 2 students. Basically, they've been word of mouth by the professor. And I will tell you, recruiting students is a tricky thing today, especially for us. We're not selling. We're going to be doing a very different kind of admissions for 2 reasons. One is cost. Most institutions of higher learning spend an enormous amount of money on advertising, and it's advertising that's generally locally, or it's also advertising that's centered around word searches, clicks, SEO, advertising, etc. And that raises tuition costs dramatically. Some institutions spend between 10 and 30% of their revenue on advertising in the U.S., and that's a big chunk of change. And we've got to be smarter about it and build this more organically. So we're still studying that. As a person who did admissions at a startup secondary school, we're going to be doing a lot of high touch talking with people, but we don't want to get into the situation of having to blow lots of money on click ads where there's bot fraud. But if you want to talk more about that, please send an email to me at skiff@aplerno.com or to Daniel, Dan, or Jesse, and we'd love to set up a time to chat with you about what we're doing in terms of admissions, and also if you guys have any suggestions. This is a whole new world out there in terms of recruitment, and we're creating it right now. All right. We had one more agenda piece, which was new accounts workflow.
Yeah. Well, I put that on there. There's an for all the new faculty members, we noticed an issue with their new account member or new accounts, that people tended to. They get an email address for their email. They get an email address with a password so they can get that email, but they generally don't realize that they also have to create an account on the marketplace, which is the way we've currently set it up. And so whenever they try to log in on the marketplace with this email address and this password, then they get a message that they can't log in and that the email or password is wrong, which is of course not the message that we want to be sending. We want to send the message that they can log into our stuff. So my suggestion is actually to have a slightly different workflow for this. We have of course a big problem that your password for your marketplace and your password for your email are not connected, so we don't update the password that you have for your email account. so that if you change it in the marketplace, it isn't automatically changed for your email. So this is one of these, but this may be a slightly more minor point in this hearing, but I'm still thinking that perhaps we have to look at a slightly better workflow for this, whether it's just creating the account, pre-creating the account for the faculty member or the student or whoever's a new admission, say, and that we send them a link that they can activate their account, for example.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, and I think, you know, we've mentioned this in the past, but it's worth mentioning again, is that once we do have the, you know, sufficient and substantial revenue to host our own email, we will have a dashboard style login where both students and faculty will log into one place at our website, and they'll be able to navigate to their courses, to their email, to messages, much like, I don't know, say Facebook in a way. Well, not really, but much like other higher ed institutions, where you have one portal to all of your sort of account aspects while within that institution. So that's, you know, that's something that comes with building. Right now, as we use what's available to us as our solutions, and we will continue to do that as more things become available and as more of a budget can be created for Daniel to have a team to institute these kinds of large builds. That's coming down the pike. But for now, you know, you have 2 accounts with us. One will access your email, that's with one password. One will access the marketplace and Canvas, and that's a separate password. But we can rework our messaging in the welcome email to make that crystal clear, so that folks, if they do run into an issue, it's easy to get it solved quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was also, I think, in the past a question. I think it was from, I don't know if I can mention the faculty member saying, but it was from one of the faculty members who'd said that he couldn't access his he got his email, he could access it, but he wasn't getting any email, and he'd gotten slightly confused because there's also a messaging system within Canvas, which is not your email. That's just messaging within Canvas, so you can communicate with the students or whatever, or with your other faculty members. That's actually separate for your email account. So your email account is really purely purely as identifier to say that I'm an Aplarno faculty member, rather than anything else.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move the campus, okay, our internal campus, much more from sending out, you know, emails to moving that straight through the Canvas portal as much as possible. And that'll be, you know, a slight migration that we'll have to do culturally to also get people to log on and spend more time on there. Because, yeah, it becomes very confusing when you have like 50 trillion email addresses that you have to keep track of, and you know what's going on, where it's much better if it's in one location. So yeah. Yeah, we'll figure out how to initiate that in the private session. I mean, we've been going a half an hour, and we always say that we want to keep these meetings for about a half hour. I don't have anything else to add unless you guys have any sort of small announcements.
No, I don't have anything to add either.
Okay.
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
My whole thing is going to be, you know, build your courses. This is a multi-legged stool, and that content is going to be essentially our biggest, quote, product, for lack of a better term. So if you're a faculty member out there who's built a course, thank you. Great work. Our courses that we have approved are really high quality. And if you're still in the process of building, and you know, I think a lot of people are kind of waiting in the wings to see sort of proof of concept. But as an early adopter and having early access to Aplarno, it's more advantageous for you to build out your course, have it ready to go, so that as soon as students start flooding in, you're not trying to play catch up. And to add piggyback on the fact that once your course is built as a whole, a player node becomes a more momentous, more significant and substantial organization, and we all move forward together. So content is king right now, or queen, or maybe democratically elected leader. Please do build it, and know that as building it, that's a huge contribution to the creation of this new movement, and will help us all move forward together.
Yeah, listen, thank you very much for turning into the team meeting 34. You can tune in next week at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another meeting, and please send us your questions and send us your comments because this is an open forum and an open team meeting, so you can participate if you would like, and we will see you online. Take care.
We will see you online. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Bye-bye.